and thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to learn more about content marketing on LinkedIn. Now more than ever, it's really important to learn how to use content marketing to engage your audience. And today we will aim to teach you the knowledge you need to build out an engaging content marketing plan. Before we dive into the content today, we always start with some housekeeping items to ensure you have the best experience with us today. Firstly, you should be able to hear us through your computer speakers. There's no separate dial-in for the audio. If you are having trouble hearing Claire and I, please ensure that your volume is at a high level. If you are experiencing any difficulties with hearing or seeing us, please make sure that Flash is enabled and try refreshing your screen or logging back in and out of On24. And something that I always forget to do, but if you log out of VPN, you should also find that this increases the stability of the webinar. We would love to hear from you today. So please submit any of your questions at any time through the Q&A portal. We will endeavour to answer them as quickly as we can, but please do be patient as we get a lot of questions coming through during our broadcast. We'll also have some time at the end where our team will be available to answer any questions you may have. So again, please be patient as we respond as quickly as we can. On your screen, you will have a number of resources available to you during today's webinar. Please take the time to check these out. I've also included the slides for you to download, so don't feel like you have to quickly take notes. I'll send out the recording after today's session just in case you've missed something as well. And then finally, we also want to hear from you. At the bottom of your screen, you will see a survey. Could you please take 2 minutes to complete the feedback form? We want to bring you more sessions like these, and we love hearing any feedback that you may have on how things were great or if things needed to be improved. Right, so I think I've covered everything now, so let's get started. My name is Mandy, and I look after customer marketing at LinkedIn. I've been at LinkedIn for nearly 8 years, working in both of our sales and now our marketing team. And over the last 8 years, I've really seen our business shift from predominantly a jobs platform with some banner ads to now we have an extremely strong focus on brands publishing really engaging content. And I'm excited to be able to take you through some of my learnings through today's session. We are also really lucky to have my colleague Claire join us today. Claire is our in-house content marketing expert. She's an absolute powerhouse when it comes to teaching marketers how to build a content marketing strategy. She will join us a little later in today's session. Now let's have a look at our agenda for today. Like I mentioned earlier, we are here to take you through how to build a content marketing strategy. And Claire and I will be focusing on a few areas today to really help your brand stand out from the noise and clutter that your audiences can be exposed to throughout their day. How can you really stand out to make sure you are the brand that they remember? So Claire and I will help uncover some of the key elements to remember when building out a content marketing strategy. We will be looking through the lens of LinkedIn, but these principles can be applied to any marketing strategy on any platform. Firstly, I think it's really important to start with a foundational understanding of what is the driving force of high engagement on LinkedIn. I'll then hand over to Claire and she'll join us to talk a little bit deeper about content marketing and how to ensure you're always putting the member first when thinking about the customer journey on LinkedIn. I will then jump back on and talk about how to optimize your content on LinkedIn and some best practices to remember when writing your content. Okay, so I think we've spent enough time going through the agenda and housekeeping. Now let's get going on the content. When you are starting to think about your content marketing, it's important to think about your target audience and what's driving their engagement and how your brand can fit in. LinkedIn is the largest professional network with over 690 million members worldwide. And as you can see, we have around 186 million members in North America, over 157 million members in Europe, and over 185 million members in APAC. I think it's important to break these figures down to provide you with some context on the growth of the platform. And the number that really resonates with me is that we have around 3 new members joining per second, which is crazy to think that we're still experiencing this kind of growth on our platform. A common misconception about LinkedIn is that we are predominantly a jobs platform. And looking back on our history, that's why the platform was created, but it's definitely evolved since then. So I want to make sure that the first key takeaway for today's session is that LinkedIn is no longer just a job platform. We see a lot more engagement with content than our job postings. LinkedIn members really value engaging content in their feeds, and that's why they are coming back to the platform regularly. We consistently see 15 times more engagement with content posts than jobs. LinkedIn is fast becoming a daily destination for news, and this is really driven by our internal news team who are regularly publishing content on the platform. We have seen a 60% increase in engaged feed time. This is really significant growth in the time spent on the platform and in particular the news feed. LinkedIn has invested heavily in content and has developed a local news and editorial team in most of our regions. There are 1,200 posts shared every minute on the platform. As professionals, we're becoming much more open to sharing content regarding our company, industry, and day-to-day roles. Not to mention some of the other statistics here, such as the 100,000 articles shared each week and the 60% year-on-year growth of in-feed viral actions, which just means that our members are actively engaged and paying attention to what they see within the newsfeed. The content that members see on the platform is of high quality, and members report back that the time they spend on the platform is time well spent. Most people are members of multiple social media platforms, but interestingly, the reason why we visit each platform and how we spend our times there are vastly different. Interpret is a global consumer insights agency, and they recently surveyed people and asked them, why do you typically use each of the site or apps? And unsurprisingly, consumers have very different mindsets and different intent on each of the platforms. The study showed that members come to LinkedIn to invest time, to improve themselves. They're really looking for knowledge to improve themselves professionally and to learn from leaders and experts in their industries. It's not a mindless scroll on LinkedIn. It's really an intentional one. And that intention mindset is a key thing to remember. Consumers approach other platforms very differently. And when I think of my own behavior, it's definitely in line with these results. When I get home from work and I jump onto Facebook and Instagram, I don't have a Twitter account, I'm on there to catch up with my friends, watch funny videos, and generally just be entertained. This is definitely a different mindset as to what I go onto LinkedIn for. But these different mindsets are key things to remember when you're planning out your content marketing strategy, as you need to position your content in a way that speaks to the different mindsets. Now that you know the mindset of LinkedIn members, let's have a bit of a look at the content that they like seeing when they visit the platform. Members are coming to the platform to invest time in themselves. They really want to see the content that can help them be the best that they can be and who they are aspiring to be. This content comes from businesses like yours and from their peers in their industries. So if you position your content in a way that is educational, informative, inspiring, or about the latest trends, that's what really drives the highest engagement on our platform. Now that we know why members are coming to LinkedIn and what their mindset is like on the platform, let's talk about the key topics that you could talk about when positioning your content to your audience. So when you're thinking about your campaigns or auditing your content, try and work with content that talks to some of these areas. Industry trends, top tips, best practices on how to use your product? Do your employees have some interesting perspectives about working at your company? Make sure you include these types of content pieces in your content marketing plan, as they drive really strong engagement levels. Interestingly, we did see conversations shift in line with what we see happening in the world around us. As the world has been affected by the recent COVID-19 pandemic, we did see conversations shifting. Comparing the trending topics between now and January 2020, you can see that our numbers were really focused on COVID-19 and how the pandemic was affecting the world that we work in. Unsurprisingly, we have seen a huge shift in the topics that are popular on the platform at the moment. So things like virtual collaboration tools, like the shift to meetings between online and video conferencing, collaboration tools like Teams and Zoom, things like mental health and employee health are other topics that we are seeing a high engagement on. You may be thinking, why is this important to me? How does this affect my content marketing strategy? Well, most businesses have seen shifts in the way they work, or having to shift their entire workforce to working from home. Your business might have tools that may help. Your employees might have experiences that could be shared. These are all areas that can build out the foundation of your content marketing plan and are topics that LinkedIn members are looking for on our platform. All right, so I think that's enough from me for the moment. So I'm going to hand over to Claire now to really dig a little deeper into building a content marketing strategy. Over to you, Claire.
Thanks for that, Mandy. Okay, we are going to move into talking about your content marketing strategy. So, quite a few different elements that go into this. I don't want to overwhelm you, but we're going to talk about 5 specific things that we think are really important to your strategy and how you can use LinkedIn and some of its great tools to help you build out your up and coming strategy. I'm also going to share some case studies because I know everyone loves a good case study. All right, we are going to get kicked off by talking a little bit about the difference between content marketing and advertising. This is something that comes up a lot with different clients wanting to know, well, what is the actual difference and where do they fit and how should I be thinking about them differently? So very simply, the way to think about this is advertising is when you talk about you, your service, your products. It has a particular price point, normally a particular period of when you can buy it. And it's really about kind of, having a very direct conversation with someone or normally a mass kind of audience about that particular product or service. Whereas content marketing kind of is flipped and it's all about the customer. So it's really focusing on their needs, their challenges that they might have over a specific time and helping to solve them. So it's showing that you as a company understand what those challenges and needs are. And then by creating content, you're actually helping to solve them along that journey that they're going on. It is a much more of a long tail strategy. It's really about being able to pull that audience in and start building a relationship with them. All right, so what actually goes into a strategy? First of all, let's talk about your purpose. You need to know why you're doing this. So a lot of the time, I will meet with clients and they're not really quite sure what their really kind of, bigger purpose of creating a content marketing strategy is. They just know that they need content. So I really would advise is creating an internal mission, an internal vision for what this strategy is going to be. Simon Sinek says it really well when he talks about our why. And he says, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And that doesn't matter if we're talking externally to customers or whether we're talking internally to our marketing teams and bigger leadership teams. We really need to understand why we're actually doing this so that they can be bought in to that strategy and so it can be successful. And if you actually write this down, then hopefully you are going to be able to document that, bring people on board, be able to present that, and always go back to, well, this is exactly why we're doing it. It is going to help in terms of that business growth, or it is going to help in terms of our bigger marketing efforts for this year. Okay, number 2. This is when we get to set our goals. Once we know what our purpose is, we can then think a little bit more clearly about what we want that goal to be. So this could be anything from we want to increase our revenue by X% to we want to own a certain size of our of the market right now, or it could be about increasing our audience size. So at the moment, we know that our penetration is quite small. We want to be able to reach a much bigger audience size and actually have more conversations with a bigger pool of potential prospects. Once we have those, then we start moving on to thinking about our audience. And this is not just thinking about the kind of, their age and their gender, where do they live. This is really actually, who are these people? What do they care about? What are their challenges? Highly recommend doing an empathy map here to start actually mapping out a little bit more about who our customers are. Who is it that we want to speak to? Who do we want to bring on this journey? And I've got a great example that I'll share with you about how you can start thinking about that audience. Once we have that and we understand who our audience actually is and what they need, then we can start building out our content pillars. Now, your content pillars are going to come at the intersection of basically what do our customers want and need, what are we of authority on, and then trying to define what is that white space that we can own. And your pillars will fall out of that. And you'll come up with maybe 3 or 4 that all of your content is going to sit underneath and ladder up to as you go throughout your strategy. And then finally, the distribution plan. So this is when we can start thinking about how are we going to make sure this gets into the right environments in front of the right people so that we can actually achieve that goal that we're looking to really get to. I want to share with you a one-pager that hopefully will be really useful. This is where you can actually start building out that content strategy on a page. I highly recommend doing this because then any meeting that you go to or being able to communicate this internally, you have it all in one place, all documented, and very quickly people can see exactly what it is that you're trying to achieve, what your mission is, what your SMART objectives are, what formats you're using, channels, and the budget you have behind this. So, how can we use LinkedIn to help you support some of that strategy work that you're going to be doing? On LinkedIn now, we have objective-based advertising, which basically means when you go in to our platform, when you're doing advertising, you can actually pick if you want to have an awareness campaign, an engagement campaign, or if you're really focused on conversion. So you pick that objective and then you start picking the KPI, and then it will show you the ad format that you can be using. So this might help in terms of some of the objective settings to say, well, we know what we want to be able to reach X% of our audience. Therefore, we're going to do an awareness campaign and we're really going to be focused on reach, or we're going to be focused on video views. And then you can see what formats you would then be using in terms of that content. The insights tool. So in CMT, which is Campaign Manager, you can actually see all the website demographics that are coming through. So this is a really, really great way to get a better understanding of who your audience is. And I'd highly recommend looking at this to then help you figure out a little bit more about who your audience actually is, and say, well, is this who we're trying to target? Or from our desktop research and from speaking to our sales team, does it need to be someone else? And if so, how do we start tweaking that? If you have the website pixel down on your website as well, then you'll get even more insights into who is visiting your website, and this will also help with some of those audience insights. Content suggestions. This is one of my favorite parts of our platform that came into play last year. And this is where you get to see different content and topics that your followers and audience are engaging with across LinkedIn. So it gives you an idea of some of the things that they are interested in. And again, you can use it as a validation point to say, well, these are the pillars that we've come up with. Are we seeing that our audience are interested in these type of things? And is our content going to work? Targeting. So we have first-party data on LinkedIn, and this basically means that all of our data and how we target people within the platform comes from when people set up their profile and all the updates that they make when they get new jobs as they go along their career. So we can target people from in terms of their experience, their education, their interests, many different facets, but the great thing is that it's all first-party data and it's all updated in real time. And then finally, this is a really nifty little tool that I absolutely love, and we call it the hum, sing, shout model. And it's all about creating a bit of a structured plan for your distribution. Again, it's a one-pager that you can use with your LT and with some of your executives to really show them what you're looking to achieve this year. So first of all, we start with our hum. This is your always on. And this is where you want to be thinking about what's that constant hum, that constant conversation that we want to be having with our potential customers. And what are the topics that are going to sit there? Then you start building on top of that some of your smaller sing campaigns. So these might be points in the year where you know you have different product releases or updates to your products, or you might have a certain series coming out, and you just want to elevate your voice a little bit more in market and probably reach a slightly bigger audience at this point. Then we build on top of that and we have our big shout moments. So these are our big campaigns throughout the year that we really want to hang our hat off. Now, I'd recommend these are things like a potential rebrand. This might be a big event that you have going on. That's an annual event where you're normally trying to pull in a lot of people and create a lot of thought leadership around. Or it could be a new product release. If you can start building these three elements and think about this as a distribution plan for the year, then very quickly you're going to start seeing, one, where the potential gaps are in terms of your content strategy, but then also you're going to be able to communicate with people what are the different times of the year when you need to be elevating your voice a little bit more, and how do we make sure that we still have that always on hum layer happening. The reason we want that is because it helps us to build momentum. So when we do sing and shout, people actually hear us. If we just do a lot of shouting, then it just becomes a little bit like the advertising we're constantly trying to push. Whereas what we want to do with the hum is really think a little bit more about that pull, and it's a consistent pull. So this is where the long haul comes in a little bit more. Okay, let's move on and talk about case studies. This is one of my favorites. So this comes from HBF, so an insurance company, and it's called Hubs for Dad, the direct advice for dads. And you might be thinking, well, why is it just focused on fathers, and why is it not got why is it not focused at both mum and dads? And the answer is that HBF basically found out that no one was really speaking to dads. They figured that in terms of a target audience, this could be a really prime audience to speak to because no one was actually having that conversation with them. Everything out there was focused at mums. So what they did was build this amazing hub, all backed obviously by its content marketing strategy. And they have created content with dads for dads. So it's very real, and it's really awesome content that helps anyone from basically who's an expecting father through to newborns through to toddlers. So there's a real range in terms of who this content speaks to, It's very much focused on trying to be very real for our dads out there. Here, they obviously had a purpose of, well, we want to be able to tap into a new audience and we want to be able to grow our market share. They needed to find out who that audience was, and then they needed to create something that was different in market, what the white space out there was, and you can see they've done that really nicely. All right, let's move on to something that sits a little bit more in the B2B realm, and this is from GE Reports. GE Reports probably have some of the best content marketing out there. They are pretty much kind of, I guess, gods in this sense. They have been doing this for a long time. And what they wanted to achieve, I guess their purpose was they wanted to be able to become an editorial publication. And they said, yeah, we're engineering, but we can do that too. So they wanted to challenge a lot of the different tech and engineering publications out there to become the best in market. And I think I can say that they've done that really, really well. They create content that is not just around their services, their products, and what they're doing. It's trying to find really interesting stories that are happening throughout the world and bring them to all of us in the hope that people will see how GE understands everything that is going on our world from an engineering and tech perspective, and then they can add in some of those GE elements. But the idea is that if it's not interesting to me and you, then it really shouldn't be in that hub that they have created. They want to make sure that this is not just about them, but it's really about us and what we care about in our bigger world and environment. So, to finish off, traditional advertising very much focused on you, your product, your service that you're trying to put out there. Content marketing is about building trust. Thomas Keller, who is the behind the kind of some of the great work that has happened at GE, puts this really well, and he says, content builds trust, trust builds relationships, relationships drive revenue. Hopefully that gave you a good understanding of the different elements that go into a content marketing strategy, what you need to focus on, and also how the LinkedIn platform can actually help you with some of those elements given the tools that we have available on our platform. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the customer journey. This is one of my favorite things that I cover off in content marketing, and the reason is because the customer journey is so complex. There are so many intricate things that go into creating the right customer journey, and it takes a long time to figure out what works and how we should be building this out for our strategies. So I want to talk a little bit about holidays. Now, I'm sure everyone who's listening to this has thought about going on holiday this year, maybe done some research, maybe as the bands start lifting, thinking about, where can we go, researching some hotels. I myself have done this quite a lot over for the last couple of months, and I spend a lot of time trying to find the best accommodation for me and my husband. It drives him insane. He's like, just book something, let's go. Whereas I want to know I have got the best accommodation within our budget, and that is going to be absolutely fantastic. So I don't know about you, but I'm going on Airbnb, I'm going on booking.com, what if, stays, everywhere. I want to know that I've done my research, I've done my homework, and I've found the best possible outcome. Now, this often means that it takes quite a bit of time, but you end up with the best result. And this is exactly how our buyers feel on LinkedIn. So our members say that 89% they conduct their research anonymously during the first 6 months of the buying process. They love doing research, just like me and you like doing our own research. So B2C and B2B really aren't that different. And in fact, with B2B, we probably do even more research, or there's more people doing it within a buying committee because the buy is so much bigger. So 89% of people are doing it through that first 6 months. So that's before you even know who these people are. So you need to have content out there in the ecosystem so that they can find you during that period. We also know that 74% of buyers choose the brand that was first to add value as they were defining their buying vision. So if 89% are doing research anonymously and you are not there, and 74% say that they're picking one of those brands that was there right at the beginning, then you may be losing out if you are not there. So being on and being always on is really, really important in your strategy. And you remember in the last section, we talked about that hum and that always on notion. This creates a really important part of our customer journey. And we need to make sure that is there. Otherwise, we miss out on being considered as a potential option when people come to purchase. Now, I just want to show you probably one of my favorite clips from Master of None that sums up everything I've just said very, very nicely.
Come on, there's so many taco places. We gotta make sure we go to the best one. I'll do some research.
Great. I'll sit here and do nothing.
Tacos Morellos?
Sounds good to me.
I'm sure you're either laughing at that, smiling because it's either you or your partner or one of your friends. But we do make decisions using a lot of different research points, and it doesn't matter what we're buying. So hopefully that stays in your mind when you're thinking about creating your customer journey and all the different elements that you might potentially need, and the fact that you do need to be always on to be found. So let's talk about what actually goes into a successful customer journey. And I've broken this down into 5 steps. You'll see I love kind of doing 5s. We had 5 steps in the last one. We're going to have 5 steps in this one to make it super simple. All right, number 1. We need to think about how we balance investment in brand and demand if we want to actually drive growth within our business. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, sales create revenue for our business, as we know. Activation within market drives sales. However, that activation in market decays after quite a short period of time if we are not doing brand as well. Because all we're doing is actually capturing the current demand in market. So if we're not creating new demand, then it really dries up quite quickly. We've been working with Burnett & Field, and they have helped us to basically figure out what is the perfect mix in a B2B world of brand and demand. And what they found from a longitudinal study is that we need to be spending about 54% of our budget in brand and 46% on demand. Now, many of you are probably looking at this thinking, wow, our budgets don't even look like that at all. That's okay. This is the holy grail that you want to try and get to. At the moment, you might have at least 60 or 70% of your budget sitting down there in the demand bucket. The whole point is that hopefully you do get to this even split. It takes a while, but as long as you're working towards this, then you're on the road to success. Number 2 is thinking about, well, if we need to be creating demand, then we actually need to be speaking to customers who are in market and out of market. Now, the ones who are in market, that is the bit where we're capturing our demand. They are in market buyers who are creating our current cash flow. They know what they want. They've kind of already decided on it, and they're going to help to build up our revenue currently. However, what about that future cash flow? Where's that coming from? That is from our out of market buyers. So these are people who are not yet at the point of purchase. They're at the real beginning of that decision. And in fact, they might not even know about us. So we need to bring them in to bring them into that strategy and start figuring out how we're going to nurture them to bring them into the current cash flow. So as you can see down the bottom here, we've broken this up into education and then action. So our members, when they are exposed to both brand and acquisition, we know that they are 6 times more likely to convert. So that idea of having brand and demand active at the same time and actually speaking to customers who are in market and out of market is going to help to increase your conversion rates on our platform. Number 3 is thinking about the content that you actually design to address the intent of your different audiences along that buying cycle. And I just want to show how you can map that out. So you can think about this from what's the mindset of my customer right now, and then what's the content I need to create to help them overcome that challenge or that query or pondering that they're currently doing right now. So I just want to give you an example. I'm going to use a marketing example because this is something we can probably all relate to. My mindset might be something like, I've got issues with how I'm capturing my marketing data right now, but I'm just not really sure how we solve it. There's just a lot of different things out there in market that I know about, but I don't really know what the answer is. So at this point, I'm just aware that I have an issue with my marketing data, but no idea how I'm going to solve it. So content such as marketing challenges with data and how to overcome them in a little short video or a blog might be very inviting for me at this stage. Or I might have a CRM and a couple of different MarTech integrations that could potentially help me, but I know that there's more I need to know in terms of this kind of value and what's it going to bring to the business. So this is the point where I might be going, okay, well, I'd love to see a case study. I'd love to see how someone else has done this within their business. So this is how such and such a company overcame challenges with research on how much a CRM saves a company each year. So this could be in the form of a webinar, it could be a blog, it could be a case study. This is where as well often things like white papers and ebooks can work pretty well. I get to a point where I'm probably a little bit more about making a decision at this point. So I know that there's kind of 3 or 4 that are solutions that I think could really work for me and companies that I'm considering, but I just don't know which one is quite right for me still at this point. So this is where some of the benefits of this particular product and learning more about the actual product or service can help me. So you can see we've kind of started with content marketing at the top 2 layers. And as we've got down to this kind of decision-making part, this is where I do want to understand a little bit more about the functional benefits of this particular product or service. So this is when you get to start talking a little bit more about you. And then finally, action is where we hand it over to the sales team. So this is where I say, okay, I'm ready to buy and I'm giving signals, but I've just got some few last kind of questions that I want to speak through with an expert. And this is where the sales team come into play. So as you can see, quite different mindsets that people might have and quite different pieces of content that they will be consuming at each of those stages. Making sure that we have all of this content in market at the same time is really important. People don't go from one piece to the next piece to the next. They actually consume in a way where they're in and out, and they might come in at different stages. So it's super important to have it running or have it in market all of the time. Number 4 is about creating content for different members of your buying committee. So many of you, as I said, sales cycles could be 12 to 18 months. It's a really big purchase. So these buying committees can sometimes be up to 9 people, 12 people in them. And this means they're often changing roles because this buying decision could be made over a period of time. So we need to be thinking about, well, what is the different content that speaks to them? What are the different things that each of them actually care about as they're going through this journey? And how do we start actually influencing them, but sometimes even the people below them, because they change roles so quickly and can move up the ladder within their businesses and move from someone who wasn't actually an influencer to someone who now currently is. So I just want to give you some examples of what these look like. So you can see here 2 examples from G Suite. One is directed at business directors. The other one is at tech directors. So it calls out the actual audience in the copy. And you can see that they have different kind of, benefits that they're calling out in the copy there. So the one that's for business directors, very much focused on customer service, security engines, are always on call. Tech directors, this talks about building your company from the ground up. It uses words that tech people would be familiar with, which is about reliable, secure, smart. Elmo. So Elmo Cloud HR and Payroll is a company who is obviously selling software to a HR function. Now you can see here 2 pieces of content geared at different people within that company. So the first one, onboarding is a critical part of the talent management. It can help successfully candidates become productive employees. This is all about trying to reduce staff turnover. And this is about helping people to have the best onboarding that they could possibly have to make sure that people are happy when they come into their roles. On average, it takes employers 68 days to fill a position at a cost of around $500 a day per open position. So this is more talking about the finance aspect of things. So very quickly, looking at these, I can see that the first one is really geared at people who are in HR. Second one is geared at people who are in finance and procurement. Different creatives have different objectives, speaking to different people within the buying committee. All driving though generally to the same landing pages with the same solutions. Finally, I just want to talk about how do you bring this to life with LinkedIn solutions. So really important that you're picking the right formats and the right solutions on the platform to bring your content to life. So at the top of the funnel, we're thinking about shaping perception, building that trust, and starting to nurture. We want to think about how do we reach these people at a pretty big scale. So things like using sponsored video, sponsored content work really well here. So video, blog posts, influencer content, LinkedIn Live can work really well here. And we also do have a new product coming to the platform, which is LinkedIn Stories. So this will be another great one from a reach perspective. Moving down at nurture, we are looking to probably drive traffic to the website at this point and start maybe even driving leads. Soft leads such as content leads. This is where things like carousel ads work well, lead gen forms, and even just standard sponsored content which can drive to your website. In terms of the style of content here, we do recommend things like case studies, product reviews, videos, best practice, white papers, research briefs, analyst reports. Then if we move on to that final layer where we want to actually convince and convert. Things here that work really well, again, are lead gen forms. So we're trying to capture someone and get their details, then we can take them through a nurture process off platform. That can work well. In-mail works really well, so actually having more of an exclusive one-to-one conversation with them. And we do also have a new product called Conversation Ads. And Conversation Ads allow you, it's very similar to in-mail, but what it allows you to do is have a bit more of a decision tree. So you can give people 2 to 3 options. So they can either drive to the website, they can fill in a lead gen form, or maybe they want to download something there and then to consume. And there we recommend, in terms of the different types of content, again, case studies work well, tutorials, newsletters, and also here you can think about some of your product news as well. I just want to show you an example of how EY brings this to life. So EY here, they have a Better Innovation podcast that they're running. They use our video file on LinkedIn to actually bring that to life. And this is just a small snippet of the podcast that then drives to the longer podcast. A really, really great innovative way to actually use our video format on the platform and have it in feed there. They also here, you can see them using the carousel ad, and they've got some really nice stats that go through each of the different cards, taking people on a bit more of a story, a bit more of a journey across that carousel ad there. And then finally, a sponsored content piece. How will you assemble a single view of Gen Z from their fragmented identities? Really, really clear understanding of what that content is going to be when I arrive at that website. Highly, highly recommend using sponsored content just as EY has done here. So using the actual, putting copy into your image and using that image to help drive people to your website with a call to action or a better understanding of what that content is going to be about. So 3 very different formats and all just got different objectives in terms of what they're trying to achieve there.
Thanks for taking us through content marketing in a little bit more detail, Claire. As promised, I mentioned that we would finish up with some tips and tricks, and of course some best practices that you can start implementing straight away. So let's get started. From what we have learned today, I want you to take away 3 things when you are thinking of your content marketing. Keep the complex simple. Make it relevant to your target audience so it resonates with them. Be distinctive. Don't be afraid of standing out from other brands. Be bold with your messaging. And lastly, our content checklist has everything you need to know. You can find it now in the resources section, and I will also email you a copy after the session. So let's look at how we can make things a little bit more simple. Video is definitely the most popular piece of content that brands are utilizing at the moment. The brands that Claire and I are seeing do this really well are making short form pieces of content and turning it into episodes of content for their audience to engage in over a period of time. This can be done quite simply with a case study, a success story, product information, and chunking it down into smaller, digestible bits of information as teasers to the longer piece of content. I think by now we have all seen the infographic in some form or another. But the new way of putting together these infographics is using products such as our carousel ads to share data in a more visual way. This is a great example of Elmo, which is an accounting company, using data visualization to really inform their target audience of why it's important to have an onboarding solution in place for businesses. This is a really clever way of bringing to life these data points and really making it thumb-stopping content. Again, another example of a carousel ad, but this time it's been done a little bit differently. Open universities have taken their advertising, which they've included in billboards, TV ads, and repurposed the advertising into our carousel ad. And they've driven urgency in requesting people to enroll as soon as possible. So you can see they've really told the story about whether the person has had 5 years plus experience. They're letting them know that they can skip straight to postgrad study, reiterating that their experience matters, and then driving urgency by using the call to action, applications closing soon. So 2 very different ways of using the product, but very creative ways of getting the messaging across. Now let's shift gears and talk about how you can be more bold and distinctive with your content marketing. Perhaps you want to do something eye-catching like a video, but you just don't have the time to put one together. Although LinkedIn doesn't accept animated GIFs, what you can do is try using a short video with an animation loop. These images are much more eye-catching than the static images and can also drive a lot more engagement for your brand. Who doesn't love taking a quiz to find out more about yourself? This is something that always stops me from my endless scroll and gets me engaging in the content. This particular creative has really eye-stopping content with the bright colors, the lady hanging upside down. It's really different imagery than what you would usually see on LinkedIn, and it stands out in the feed. And who doesn't want to know if they're ahead of the marketing curve? Have a think about how you could position some of your content into a quiz to make it more interactive for your target audience. How can you be distinct when you are trying to build up views on a white paper? How about extracting some of the key results and turning it into a video? There are so many free tools that can help you do this. My favorite is Lumen 5, which will take your results and turn it into an interactive video. All you need to do is upload your content and it will help dice the content into an interactive video. A lot of people are consuming content on their commute and prefer the sound off, so you can still provide them with a great preview of long-form content. You also then appeal to different learning styles. So some people may love sitting down with a long document like a white paper, but other people are more visual and like to see the content in a video. So then you've got both aspects and appealing to both the learning styles that people may have. Entertain. So most importantly, please don't forget to entertain your audience. You want to make sure they remember you. Here is a great example of Volvo, who entertains with test drive videos. This particular ad was for Volvo trucks, so personally not the most exciting content for me. They've really tried to make it more engaging by showing test drives of their trucks going through the desert. Notice that they've also included captions on their video. So this, again, appeals to people who may be more interested in consuming content with their sound off. Now, before we finish up, I really wanted to leave you with our content checklist. Now, I realize this is a little small here and you may not be able to see it. I'm going to email you a copy of this PDF after today's session, and you can also download it from your resources, which should be on the right-hand side of your screen. You may need to scroll down a little bit if you can't see them if you're on a laptop. This really takes you through step by step what you need to remember when you are thinking about putting your content marketing strategy together. I actually have this printed at my desk. It's a really great resource and I'm excited to share it with you all today, as I think you will find it really useful when you're preparing your content marketing plan. So to wrap us up, firstly, I really hope that you learned a lot from Claire and I today and you are feeling excited and passionate about going away and building your content marketing strategy, or perhaps making some amendments to the one you already had. There are 5 things to remember from today. LinkedIn's members are really eager to learn, and it's your responsibility as a brand to provide them with the information that you are looking for. Plan. One of my favorite sayings is, if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. You really need to sit down and plan out your content. It takes time, but it's definitely time invested well. I can guarantee you now that you will not see instant results. It really is a long game. But I can say that by planning strong and engaging content over the long term, you will see a higher return of investment over time. We are all marketers. Get creative. There really is no excuse for stock images anymore. Use some great images to portray your brand. Lastly, download our content checklist so you are set up for success for the long term. So thank you for joining us today. I have a favor to ask. Could you please take 2 minutes to complete our survey so we can improve these sessions for you? We will also be online for 15 minutes answering questions. You can enter them through the portal below. And again, please be patient as we try and answer as many questions as possible.
game. It's a rich thing.